with your main Chip Washington. When it comes to information, the main got an arsenal. Bring you up to speed with what you need. He's the local and nationwide news feed. Let's talk about it. Dialect to do something about it. Chip got the floor wide open if you got questions about it. Man, it's the show that brings you to your raw. To solve all problems, it starts with real talk. It's 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 real talk. Yeah. Welcome to Real Talk with your host, Chip Washington. It's real talk. It's real talk. It's real talk.
And here we go. On this Monday evening, it is April the 3rd, 2023, 6 o'clock straight up. And of course, when that happens, you are in the midst of Real Talk Memphis. I am your humble host, Chip Washington. Very happy to have you with us this evening. Very happy to be here myself. It was a beautiful day in the city today. To understand, temperatures are going to feel more like summer tomorrow than they are spring, with temperatures in the upper 80s for sure, in advance of another rainy event that we have coming in on Wednesday. But first things first, I hope y'all had a great weekend. This is Holy Week. Easter is coming up this coming Sunday. So, we hope you plan accordingly in terms of all of that. Friday is Good Friday, so a lot of folks are actually off work on Good Friday as we head into the Holy Weekend. We hope to have a good show for you tonight. You know, that is always my hope each and every Monday night when we gather at the river right around this time. But before we get into that, how do you get this fine piece of radio broadcasting? Well, we are on 91.7 on your FM dial right now. That would be WYXR. You can also catch us on the WYXR app as well as TuneIn. We are on Facebook Live this evening, and when the show posts tomorrow afternoon, we will be available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. That's because we're actually a podcast as well. So now that we got all that business out of the way, great. As far as the show tonight, we're going to have a very informational show this evening. We do that a lot, but tonight we're going to talk to some folks that none of which I've ever spoken with before. These are all brand new guests, although I'm getting to know them a bit. Many of us are more than familiar with the protest that occurred in our city at the death of Tyree Nichols by several of our young community activists out there. There's one in particular who stood out from the crowd. She was the leader. She was the organizer. And she is very determined to make sure that things change for the safety of our citizens, especially as relates to the police department. And you never really hear them have much of a conversation outside of what they do when they are protesting various issues and concerns. Amber Sherman is supposed to join me in a few minutes. She is a community activist and she is a protester. And again, right out front, especially after the Tyree Nichols death, she was on national television as well. She got a mention from Reverend Al Sharpton in terms of, being a protester that really make a difference and set the standard for what that should look like across this country. The Wells family, the parents of Tyree Nichols, did not want any violence whatsoever to break out and sue, in terms of the loss of their son. Memphis was the model for that. These young people got out in the streets, and now they are in the face of the city hall, folks, our councilmen and women, demanding change and accountability for police actions. We'll talk with Amber in just a few minutes. Also joining me is Kelly Price. Kelly is a youth advocate. He is someone who is dedicated to the betterment of our young people. He has a STEM program, which of course really is the wave of the future educationally for our youngsters, and a good way for them to get out from where they are now. And he's also teaching them how to be young entrepreneurs. And he's got some other programs as well. And I thought that, it would be good to have him on the show to talk about his passion for these young folks and why he does what he does on a daily basis. And it's only been a week now since the tragic, or 2 weeks, inside 2 weeks since the tragic events of what happened in Nashville at the Presbyterian Elementary School, where a horrible shooting took place. We had 6 people die, 3 adults and 3 children. I've been wondering to myself, how, now that the funerals have started, how are these folks being able to grieve? I mean, how do you mourn a situation? How do you grieve a situation? How do you digest all of that as you're, especially if you're a child? This is an elementary school. There is major trauma associated with all of this, not only with the children, but with the families as well. And because of that, I wanted to have a licensed counselor on. His name is Charles Winton, and he will be joining us a bit later on as well to talk about how to cope with very traumatic events like the one we saw in Nashville. All of that coming up a little bit later. But right now, it is time to celebrate you, celebrate your current trip around the sun. If you're celebrating a birthday, if you had one over the weekend, or if you had one today, or even this week, this is your time. This is the time we shout you out. And I can't do that until I say, hit it, Brent.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthdays going out to the following on this Monday, April 3rd. Happy birthday, Sherry Steppins today. Terry Lynn Robinson is celebrating a birthday, as is my old buddy Jamie Horton from Jackson, Mississippi. He's celebrating his birthday today. Happy birthday to Mr. Willie Hollinger, Miss April Draper, Dan Lewis Arata, and another friend and former colleague of the old Fox 13 days, James Mott. The Mott Man is celebrating his birthday today, as is Kimmy Cool Jameson, Celisa Marmon, and Stacy Richards. My crew has finally all assembled here. Ladies, do you have any birthdays to share? No birthdays on from the crew on this Monday, but from all of us to all of you, congratulations. I hope your day has been filled with fun and laughter, and we look forward to being with you next year to celebrate your next trip around the sun. Thank you, Brian. So Friday was a really bad day because we had tornadoes roll through this area. Arkansas, of course, suffered some tremendous damage. Little Rock suffered some fairly extensive damage, but especially Wynn. Wynn is a town of 8,000 plus people. And I mean, it was completely wiped out. I mean, there's really nothing left in terms of that. A lot of other small communities as well. Here in Tennessee, McNairy County, 9 people perished as a result of these tornadoes that blew through that area in McNairy County. Covington, many of you may have heard, suffered some extensive damage as well. It's going to take time to rebuild, all of these communities, and I think 15 people total in the state of Tennessee lost their lives. I think a total of 30 between here and up to the Northeast lost lives in terms of those tornadoes. So please pray for all of those folks, for their recovery, and also for the souls of the lives that were lost in an EF3 tornado, which is winds at 165 miles an hour sustained. Really bad situation. We're supposed to be seeing some more severe weather possibly on Wednesday, especially in the Arkansas area. So again, we'll keep a close eye on that, and we're absolutely prayers up for all those affected. So a suspect was arrested in reference to the mass shooting at the Privé restaurant last week that left 2 people dead. He is Devon Sykes. He's charged with first-degree murder and a host of a lot of other charges in relationship to that shooting, which started basically there was a disagreement inside the restaurant that led outside the restaurant, and that is when the guns started coming out and people started firing. There was a big protest today in Nashville. We spoke a minute ago about the shooting event that happened at the elementary school there. Well, on this day, it was a group called March for Our Lives. They held a protest today, and their protest was all kids, faculty, staff, and students out of school at 10:15 this morning, which is what happened with the time of when the incident happened at the school. And they marched from their school to the Capitol, and there were hundreds and hundreds of them if you hadn't seen them. They wanted the members of the House to change the gun laws that are existing today. Well, I don't know how they're going to do that. They want to change permitless carry from 21 down to 18. But anyway, these folks are serious. We need some support here, and we need changes in our gun laws for sure. Many of you heard that the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, is in New York ahead of his formal arraignment tomorrow. Criminal charges have been filed against him. He has been indicted. He is the first ex-president in the history of this country ever to be criminally indicted. We will find out what the charges are. There are some 30 plus tomorrow as he turns himself in about 2:15 in the afternoon. I'm also to be told that he's going to, of course, have a little speech about all this after he's arraigned, released, gets on his jet and flies back to Florida. And finally, congratulations to the LSU women's basketball team for winning their first NCAA women's basketball championship. They played Iowa, and they dusted them right off the floor. Now, this is the first time that any team representing LSU has won a national championship. The ladies did it last night. Congratulations to them. The men will be in action in a couple of hours this evening. UConn versus San Diego State University. So we're going to take our first break. And when we come back, we're going to start our conversation for a beautiful Monday evening. This is Real Talk Memphis. I am Chip, and we will be right back.
If you like Real Talk, here's a way you can get involved. Do you have a show topic idea or suggestion? Want to be considered a guest or have a guest idea? Then send Chip a message on his Real Talk show page and you can be a part of the Real Talk experience. So as he always says, go out and tell somebody. We'll be right back.
WYXR is supported by the Orpheum Theater Group, presenting Storyfest, April 13th and 14th at the Halloran Center. This two-day festival showcases the voices of Memphians. An intergenerational group of participants from across the city have collaborated with the Orpheum to share their stories in their own words. More information at orpheum-memphis.com. WYXR is supported by the Onstage at the Halloran Center 2022-2023 season, which continues in downtown Memphis. Experience live entertainment with music, magic, and more, including the return of Orchestra Unplugged and the Songwriter Series events. More information and the full lineup at orpheum-memphis.com/onstage.
This is Clark Keys with Crosstown Brewing Company. WYXR is supported by Crosstown Brewing Company's CBC Classic Golf Tournament on Saturday, April 1st at the Links at Galloway. A portion of the proceeds will benefit WYXR. More information available at crosstownbeer.com.
Hello, Memphis. Urban Earth is a proud supporter of WYXR 91.7 FM. On Saturday, April 29th, Urban Earth is hosting our annual Flicker Fest, which will feature live music by Jeff Hewlett and Devil Train. We'll also have multiple food trucks, beer from Crosstown Brewery, and activities for kids and adults alike. The festival will be held at 80 Flicker Street under the Union Avenue Viaduct in Midtown. More information at urbanearthmemphis.com.
Get Real Talk on the TuneIn mobile app under WYXR, and he's now streaming live on Facebook. And you can also catch a rebroadcast on YouTube. Just put WYXR in the search box and hit subscribe. Now back to more Real Talk with Chip Washington.
And welcome back to Real Talk Memphis on this Monday evening. Very happy to have you with us. I see a lot of you have already checked in on the Facebook Live line. I appreciate you all as well. We'll do a roll call a bit later on. So as we talked about at the top of the show, the Tyree Nichols murder shook all of us to our core as a city and as a community. And one of the things that came from that was a lot of our community activists and organizers who are out here protesting and demanding change and police accountability. One of those folks joins me now. Her name is Amber Sherman, and Amber has been really in the spot. She's been in the forefront of a lot of the protests that we have seen, and holding holding the lawmakers accountable, as I was trying to say, for what happened with Tyree, looking for police accountability. And we have been praised as a city, and they have been praised because of how they have demonstrated strength without using violence. So without further ado, please welcome to the show, Amber Sherman. Amber, it's good to see you tonight. Thanks for coming on the show.
You're welcome, Chip.
So, as I was talking, you all, and you've gotten some national notoriety. You were interviewed by some national news outlets when all of them were here after this tragic event. Reverend Al Sharpton even mentioned you, and thanked you all, for doing the job that you have been doing to keep this movement going. You're very, very passionate about all of this. Tell me where that all stems from in terms of you.
Being passionate?
Yes.
I think it's a part of us as Black folks to fight for the liberation that we deserve. And that looks like standing up when you see something is wrong, and calling people out on doing the right thing and getting reforms in place, whatever it looks like. I feel like it's our duty as Black people to make that happen.
Were you surprised? I think a lot of people were surprised. Maybe you weren't. But in terms of the community activists and everybody getting together and unifying as a unifying group, we saw a rainbow here. This wasn't just Black. This wasn't just white. This was just everyone, just men, women, everybody in between. Were you surprised to see that and the number of people that were involved in this, or no?
No, not really. I think that we've seen several times when there have been uprisings here due to police brutality or other forms of injustice that folks from all walks of life from different communities and neighborhoods have come together to advocate.
Yeah, it really seems, and I've been at, now I know one of the things that you all have been advocating, and you were very serious about it, and your intent was creating ordinances that would hold police accountable in various ways. And if you will kind of walk us through a little bit about all of that, what you all were looking for, some of the ordinances that have already been passed, and another ordinance that you are looking for some resolve to next Tuesday.
Yeah, so we had several ordinances that we introduced into the city council or drafts of ordinances that we emailed to council members and county commissioners. Mm-hmm. That would address each of the different demands that we had when we talked with Tyree's family and different community members on what they wanted to see changed here. And so that included ending pretextual stops and removing police from traffic enforcement, banning the use of unmarked cars and plainclothes officers within traffic enforcement, ending the use of the different task force and specialized units here that which was used to kill Tyree. And then also establishing a data transparency dashboard where folks could go and see when someone is stopped, what they're being stopped for, where the stop occurred, if there was any use of force, why the person was stopped in the first place, because currently there's no reporting measures here at all for traffic enforcement, for traffic stops. So when folks are being stopped and they're saying like, hey, I'm being brutalized or I'm being terrorized or targeted, there's no way to prove that that's happening because they don't track it in any way. And then unless you're given a citation, there really is no way to track that you even had that interaction with a police officer, because also we know that one, they don't track it, and two, they turn their body cameras off consistently. So it makes it really hard and difficult for us to even track that those things are happening to folks. The data transparency ordinance did pass. So that's now a law, and they're establishing that dashboard currently. And then there was an ordinance introduced to remove unmarked cars from traffic enforcement, but there wasn't one introduced that included plainclothes officers, even though we did ask for an amendment to add that. But that wasn't added. So the ordinance was voted on just for unmarked cars. I do think that plainclothes officers also need to be banned, because it's a part of the fear mongering and the fear taxes they create within citizens when they're pulling them over if they're in plainclothes. And also, you just can't trust that that's a police officer just based off the different incidents folks have had. And then the most impactful ordinance, which is the pretextual stop ordinance, is called the driving equality ordinance that Councilwoman Michael and Easter Thomas introduced, is on the third reading right now, and it's supposed to be introduced at the April 11th meeting. And so we're hoping that that'll be introduced and voted on for a third time to actually put an end to pretextual stops, because that's exactly how Tyree was killed. It's exactly how a majority of Black citizens here are being targeted.
So, and having said all that and having put all that on the table in front of the city council, who said that they were going to take action, there is one ordinance, I believe, that is going to happen next Tuesday that is supposed to combine all of the individual ordinances into one ordinance, and that is something that you all are really not behind, because you don't think it has any teeth. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, so we as like community members, including Tyree Nichols' family, Mr. and Mrs. Ravon Wells, do not support the Tyree Nichols Justice and Policing Act. They put out a statement earlier in the week about that, when that ordinance was coming up for a second reading. We all went to the council meeting and made statements about it. We don't support it because it doesn't include anything that would actually keep Tyree alive. It copies and pastes different sections of traffic enforcement statutes from the MPD handbook, basically codifying it into law, none of which would have saved Tyree's life. And it doesn't include the ordinances that we passed. So it does include like a very vague phrase about unmarked cars, but doesn't include anything about pretextual stops or the data transparency ordinance. And when we talk to different council members, one, they don't even read the things that they're proposing, because Chase Carlisle said, he hadn't read it, so he didn't see that it wasn't in there. And that he would say something to someone about it being added. And then Martavis Jones, the chairman, commented after they voted and said that he texted his research assistant asking her to rectify it and add in those other ordinances. I think that they're liars and that they like to push the idea of process instead of just being real with people and saying that they don't want to pass something or they don't want to add things that we're asking for. When they originally wrote that ordinance, it was told to us that they were asking the city attorney to write an ordinance that would include all of the ordinances that were passed, and they repealed them as individual ordinances because they would be included in that ordinance. But as we see, they're not in there.
So next Tuesday is the third reading of this, and it gets down to it. Now, I will say I've been to a few of the city council meetings of late, and I was at a couple of them when the room was absolutely packed. I don't know that I've ever seen the city council auditorium packed, and there were people standing in the back. And this was when you all were trying to pass the initial ordinances. I mean, there was really strength in numbers, Amber, and you could feel the tension in that room, and you could feel the anger, the frustration, and maybe, what you were all expecting that day. Did that surprise you to see that many people? I know you put the call out, come, be here, stand behind this, and support this. But I mean, it was an amazing turnout. But it was also pretty emotional as well.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. I think that one thing that we've seen here is that when folks want to see tangible change, they show up. And so that's why they've been continuing to show up at council meeting after council meeting. We'll start going to county commission meetings as well, because those ordinances are going to be going through the county commission also, because people do want to see some kind of tangible change. And we're sick and tired of people playing in our faces and saying they're going to do something, but it doesn't ever actually amount to anything. And I don't think it's fair to citizens to wait until someone is murdered to say we're going to change some laws or change some practices. We should be changing these proactively. So that's what this looks like.
The police chief, C.J. Davis, has been at the last few meetings as well. She has, her and her command staff were sitting over off to the side and basically listening and watching. And I know some of these ordinances they don't necessarily agree with. Have you had a chance, Amber, to speak with Chief Davis about some of the concerns that you all have?
Yeah, we had a meeting with her and the mayor a few weeks ago. I think the most important thing that we got from that conversation is that as much as she lies to the public in her statements, she also lies to people in private. And she's made statements to city council about them not using unmarked cars for traffic enforcement. We saw that they were using unmarked cars when they murdered Tyree for a traffic stop. She makes a lot of excuses and doesn't give direct answers. And when folks give her very clear solutions to problems, she placates and skirts around that and doesn't really do anything. And so the same empty statements that we've been getting from her is all that I'm expecting, because nothing that she's done proactively has changed the environment for folks in Memphis who are experiencing discriminatory policing.
How much does the support of the Nichols family, Mr. and Mrs. Wells, that you mentioned earlier, you said they put out a statement, that they didn't support some of the changes. But I mean, how much does that mean to you? And really, how much does that add an extra layer of really the importance of what you all are trying to get changed in our community by having the parents of a man who was murdered by police officers in support of what you're trying to do?
I do think it's important to have the buy-in of the people who are most affected. So that includes, the family member of someone who was murdered, but also folks who have experienced discriminatory policing, who have experienced being pulled over by the Scorpion unit and harassed and beaten. I think that's always important to have that buy-in and also have their suggestions on how, what changes should be made. But I do think that it's important to note that Decarcerate Memphis was already working on those reforms last year before Tyree was murdered. They actually presented to the city council about what it's like being a Black person driving in Memphis and the different statistics around how discriminatory the practices were, especially around traffic citations and pretextual stops, way before Tyree was murdered. So the council actually already had this information. They chose not to do anything because they like to do that. They like to talk and put out really good PR notes and go on CNN and cry, but they don't actually do anything in the end. And we're seeing that play out now as they push these reforms further and further back. The pretextual stop ordinance should have been voted on last month, but they keep pushing it back and holding it for several meetings because we're seeing that now that the national attention is kind of waned off, they really aren't taking it as seriously. So I think it is important to have that buy-in, but also that we have been pushing this issue for quite a while and they chose not to do anything months ago.
Amber Sherman, she's a community activist and protester, and you hear the passion in her voice. Amber, I know that you are anxiously looking forward to next Tuesday's city council meeting. I did see where you put out a post that said, look, everybody needs to come. The community needs to come. You need to come from outside of Memphis to support this. There's strength in numbers. And are you fairly confident that by the time the meeting is concluded that you will get the changes that you requested?
I think that folks will show up, of course, to show support, and that the city council should do the right thing and pass the ordinances. There
you go. Ladies and gentlemen, Amber Sherman. And again, it's the first time we've really heard a voice, on a platform like this to talk about some of the issues that are dealing with us. Amber, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show tonight. I really appreciate it, and best of luck.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. So as we go to break, it is important to note that, with Amber and a lot of her friends and a lot of these groups and organizations, Decarcerate Memphis and so many, are really fighting, for the rights of all of us. And I think it behooves us to be at least informed about what is happening out here and what they are trying to do out here for the betterment of our city and community, and we wish them nothing but the best of luck. We're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation. We're going to shift gears and talk a little bit about the tragedy in Nashville and how people cope with such a tremendous event, sad event as that. This is Real Talk Memphis. I am Chip, and we will be right back.
If you like Real Talk, here's a way you can get involved. Do you have a show topic idea or suggestion? Want to be considered a guest? or have a guest idea? Then send Chip a message on his Real Talk show page and you can be a part of the Real Talk experience. So as he always says, go out and tell somebody. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Will from Crosstown Brewing Company. We support WYXR 91.7 FM. A favorite beer is just like a favorite song. We feel something new every time we encounter them. Cheers to playing the hits and tasting the notes.
WYXR Stereo Sessions presented by Menfo are back, and we're bringing the funk and the bump for this next installment, featuring the underground rap pioneer, the legend Lady J, and her 1994 cult classic cassette, Glock in My Hand. Make sure to mark your calendars to be with us in the Memphis Listening Lab for this free event, April 12th at 6 p.m. And keep on listening to WYXR 91.7 FM for details on how to RSVP.
WYXR is supported by Shell Days Music Festival, presented by Menfo, April 21st and 22nd at Overton Park Shell. Shell Days will feature 2 days of music with Trampled by Turtles, Southern Avenue, Leftover Salmon, Neil Francis, Paul Thorne, and Bailey Bigger. More information at menfopresents.com. At WYXR, we are committed to uplifting local organizations and businesses who are making an impact in Memphis. If you are looking for ways to spread the word about your business on air and want to support WYXR at the same time, email us at sponsorships@wyxr.org.
Get Real Talk on the TuneIn mobile app under WYXR, and he's now streaming live on Facebook. And you can also catch a rebroadcast on YouTube. Just put WYXR in the search box and hit subscribe. Now back to more Real Talk with Chip Washington.
And welcome back to Real Talk Memphis on this beautiful Monday evening in the city. I am your humble host, Chip Washington, and it's good to be here, and it's good to have you here. And as I alluded to at the beginning of the broadcast, many of us, especially the folks our friends in Nashville, are still reeling over the events that happened. Now, 2 weeks ago, funerals are starting to happen. There were a couple of funerals for the two of the three babies that were killed, the 9-year-olds, and it's still, the city's in a state of shock, and all of us are, because these events keep happening. To understand that the shooter shot 152 rounds, 152 times in that building, and had planned a mass murder event. So I got to thinking about the folks who are most affected by this, the children, the parents, the community. So I wanted to bring on someone who can maybe kind of walk us through that. He is Charles Winton. He is a licensed counselor, and we're very happy to have him on the show. Charles, it's good to see you, and thank you for accepting the invitation to come on Real Talk. I appreciate it.
No problem. I'm glad to be here with you, Chip.
So, again, this is something I think that you deal with in various forms in your capacity as a licensed professional counselor. And really, in situations like this, when we're dealing with children, who not, still trying to develop cognitively and emotionally, when something like this happens, when a classmate is brutally murdered, just for no reason, and you're in a place where it all happened, there's a trauma that sets in, is there not? And how do we begin to start to deal with that?
You're absolutely right, Chip, is that it is very important that after those type of events happens, it is very traumatic. And times past, we didn't take trauma as serious as we do now. And so it is important and it is vital, even for our kids, that therapy comes right after a traumatic situation. Because if we don't set the trauma and set that trauma right, I like to say, if we don't set it right, it won't heal right. Mm-hmm. So that emotional pain, those emotional scars, if we don't set it right, then we're looking at years and years upon years of layers of trauma that can happen. So those things that the kids have experienced, it is very vital that we get them some help, that they can talk it, process it, and then we can then get to some healing to it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't think about things like that, especially, we've seen these mass shootings on school campuses. They're becoming almost, fairly a regular occurrence around here, unfortunately. But then you don't really think about, these kids. This was an elementary school. So these are like 5 years old to maybe 11 years old, at most. And they're just developing and forming and as they start to grow up. I saw one picture, Charles, on the news that still sticks in my mind today of a little girl who was up on the second floor where apparently a lot of this happened. And she just had her hands on the window and she was crying. And I mean, the emotion that goes along with that is just hard to erase. And that's why, I just wonder how we even begin that process of trying to maybe, say what you feel, say what you think of the loss of a classmate, and some of the things that you all do in your profession in reference to that.
Well, and Chip, you brought up an interesting story because we started off talking about the direct trauma that the kids and those teachers and the many people who were actually directly involved. But then you also have the secondary trauma for people like you who just mentioned those pictures that you see. And secondary trauma is the visions, the pictures, the hearing the stories from those who've experienced trauma. And just like you mentioned, I want to make your listeners aware as well. You mentioned the picture of the little girl that's standing in the window.
Yes.
Those type of pictures are sketched and etched in your brain that you're going to always bring up. And those are important issues that we're trying to say, that just because you were not involved in Nashville does not mean you were not affected. And the very fact that you gave voice to that image shows you that you don't have to necessarily be directly involved, but those images can rest and it pictures and it comes up. And that's what we call secondary trauma. So I don't want your listeners to think just because it happened in Nashville or happened in Texas that it doesn't affect us. It still leaves lasting images on us as well.
Absolutely that. And well said, and there's no question about it. You think about not only the parents who lost, their very young children, but we lost, some very treasured faculty members as well, all in their 60s, all had big families. You heard the backstories and everything. I mean, it's just, I don't even think, one of the words I like to use in situations like this is devastating. But Charles, I have to be honest, it doesn't even seem like that's enough. I mean, for the loss, the unnecessary loss that people and the unexpected loss that people face in situations like this, and and how do you, I mean, as family members who lost a father or a grandfather or a mother or a wife or whomever, how do you even begin to have those conversations with folks?
Well, first of all, I think that we need to educate what trauma is, because a lot of times we don't really know the definition of trauma, and trauma is a deep distressing event. And it's those things that people want you to get rid of or just get over it. And you wish you can get over it, but you can't, because it's that deep distressing event that has happened. And so first of all, I think we need to define and educate that what you're experiencing is trauma. And I think if we could put it in a way that people who've gone through these issues can understand, then they'll understand the emotion that's come behind it. But one of the reasons why they don't really understand the emotion, because they don't realize what they went through was traumatic.
Oh.
So it makes it hard to explain my emotions, my distance, my isolation. So I think number one is education. And number two, giving people a safe environment that we can talk. Like you just mentioned, how traumatic that vision was. Being open and being honest in a way that you can communicate what's going on with you.
Yeah, this is this is one of those things, and that's why I thought it was just so important to really have those conversations, because for those of us who were not directly impacted by this, we are affected by this. I know I am, and I know a lot of other people, are as well. This is a tough job, and so let me just ask you finally, if I can. You do this for a living. We know that you're a licensed counselor, but you're also a human being. And you have family members and friends and colleagues and things like that. How do you process situations like this? Or do you compartmentalize it to another area of your brain when you're doing this job? But how does it affect you, especially when you hear people who have gone through things like that? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Because beyond just a therapist, I am a trauma trained therapist. So like 90% of my work are dealing with trauma. Mm-hmm. I like to say I'm one of the 911 responder for mental and emotional after such events. So a great deal of my work is dealing with people who've been raped, molested, a hard divorce, going through traumatic situations. Mm-hmm. So for me to be present with my clients, I have to make sure that I have a safe environment, that I can process the things, the memories, the images, the stories that I hear day in and day out. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I always do is try to check in with myself, check in with my emotions. And there are times I leave my office and I'm sitting at the red light and I'm crying. I want to stay connected, but I also want to be true to my emotions. And I said, wow, that hurts. And I think for therapists who are in this job, if we think that we're disconnected, that's not good. Mm-hmm. We are humans, just like you said. Mm-hmm. And so what I do is allow myself the space and give me permission to feel the feeling. And that's one of the number one things I tell clients. Give yourself permission mm-hmm. to feel the feeling. Yeah. And that's how you process.
Wow, that's heavy stuff. Charles Winton, ladies and gentlemen, he's a licensed therapist and counselor. And Charles, thank you for coming on tonight and trying to walk us through, what is a very, very difficult time and something that many of those folks up there will never forget. Really appreciate you taking the time and laying it out for us. And you're always welcome back on the show, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me. Anytime you want me, I'm here.
Thank you, Charles. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Charles Winton, ladies and gentlemen, kind of walking us through, trauma is real. And the feelings that you feel behind situations like that are real. And you need to be able to address those some type of way in order to be able to move forward from tragic events like the ones he described, and especially what happened here recently up in Nashville. Thank him for that. We're going to take our final break, and when we come back, we are going to talk to a gentleman who is very devoted to the young people in our community. This is Real Talk Memphis. I'm Chip. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
If you like Real Talk, here's a way you can get involved. Do you have a show topic idea or suggestion? Want to be considered a guest or have a guest idea? Then send Chip a message on his Real Talk show page and you can be a part of the Real Talk experience. So as he always says, go out and tell somebody. We'll be right back.
Do you want to place your company in front of Memphis cultural consumers and influencers? How about interacting with them in a meaningful way? WYXR's second annual stereo sessions at the Memphis Listening Lab is back. We are looking for sponsors to support WYXR's exploration of unsung albums from the musical history of Memphis. For more information, email us at sponsorships@wyxr.org.
What's up? This is the legend Lady J, the first independent down south queen. I would like to invite you all to the Memphis Listening Lab on April the 12th at 6 p.m. That's right. Just pull up and make your plans to be in the building with yours truly as I share all my stories behind the first recorded album, Glock in My Hand, presented by MIFO. WYXR Stereo Sessions, RSVP for the free event at stereosessions.wyxr.org. WYXR.org. See you there. Nah, me. Yeah.
WYXR's Meeting in the Middle is the perfect place for aspiring musicians and music industry professionals to link up and chat. This year, we're focusing on sense of place, exploring the factors that have led Memphis artists to launch their careers in other cities, and all the trends that have been bringing musicians from across the globe to choose Memphis as their creative home. Be with us to join the conversation from 5 to 8 p.m. on April 4th at the University of Memphis' brand new Rudy E. Scheidt School of Music building. More information at middle.wyxr.org.
Get Real Talk on the TuneIn mobile app under WYXR, and he's now streaming live on Facebook. And you can also catch a rebroadcast on YouTube. Just put WYXR in the search box and hit subscribe. Now back to more Real Talk with Chip Washington.
Welcome back to the big broadcast on this Monday evening. Chip Washington here with you, your host, and my next guest is a fella who is very involved with our community in terms of the programs and some of the things that he is involved in. He's very involved with our young people and the future success of our young people as well. And I kid him. You know, we go to the same gym, and I kid him. You know, if I ever get like, you know, famous or something, you know, I'm hiring you as a bodyguard, man, and I'm paying you premium price, dude. I just want you to know that. Welcome, Kelly Price, to the show. Welcome, Kelly. Hey, man, good to see you.
Hey, what's going on? How you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you good, man. I got you good.
Cool.
Doing fine.
Hey, you already famous, so hey, you just got to get the money together.
Yeah, okay. That's a businessman right there, ladies and gentlemen. That paper right, and we can talk about it. Well, Kelly, it's great to see you, and it's great to have you on the show and welcome in. And the reason I wanted to have you is because, you know, I know that you're into a lot of things, and you're very community-based, you know, as well. One of the things that you talk about is the STEM program for our young people. You're also working with them about being future entrepreneurs. These are very positive and focused things. What made you decide to venture into these areas in particular?
I tell you, it kind of started out just I wanted to teach my grandkids. We had them here for the summer, and I wanted to teach them how to make a lemonade stand. So I gathered up a bunch of other kids, about 10 of them, and got them together one summer and just started teaching kids about entrepreneurship. And it kind of grew from there. And then someone said, you ought to start doing this on Saturdays during the school year. So we developed a curriculum and started doing it Saturdays during the school year.
You were telling me that you've been doing this for a while now, but what really is important to you is their success. You know, not just starting something and then just letting it go, but really being an active force involved in it and in terms of training these young people, which is vitally important. STEM in particular is something that you hear a lot of folks talk about. You hear a lot of political folks talking about this because this is where it's all going. Beverly Robinson is very famous for talking about STEM. Get your kids in a STEM program. How long have you had your STEM program, and what are your expectations from it?
Well, we developed the STEM program because we believe that STEM is a part of the business. If you can develop a product through the science part of this, or the engineering part of it, the mathematical part of it, you can actually create a job for yourself. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's where the business part comes in at. If you're creating something, then you should be able to own the rights to that property and be able to make money from it. You know, start your own chip business. Start your own, what I mean by microchip, develop your ideas, and you can profit from that. Like you see a lot of kids with YouTube pages and things like that. Well, a lot of these kids can start these jobs in STEM and things like that. These are very profitable things. Just last weekend, they had a Lego conference here. Right. They were designing these huge art pieces of artwork out of Lego. So we've been doing, we introduced that part to bring that back to what you asked me, Chip. about 5 years ago, maybe 6 now.
Mm-hmm.
We brought that in because we thought that was an important piece because it added another dimension onto teaching kids about business and how to make that profitable.
Yeah, that seems to be, really where the future is. I take it in your programs, Kelly, you also challenge these young people. I mean, you kind of walked us through the STEM aspect of it and what they can do and what they can expect. But if they're going to be in programs like this, you need to challenge them to finish what they start. And I know that's a big thing for you. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, because when we also teach them chess as well, which teaches them cognitive thinking, and it teaches them the discipline to stay focused and to stay on task. And it's not easy. If you ever put together a Lego system, not just something you're putting blocks together. Like, for example, a couple of weeks ago, we created some buildings with the magnets, part of that. And some of the kids were a little frustrated because they couldn't connect the dots with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to go back to the basis of it and look at the pieces, how they fit together, and how they all work together, because you're taking those simple pieces of plastic and manipulating the shape of them. And that takes a lot of thought and process and patience as well. So you have to see it all the way through.
If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Kelly Price, and Kelly has been on the battlefield for a long time, with these folks and creating these programs. Now, you also did you create the social networking program? Not program, but events going on in this city. Did I see that somewhere? Read that?
Yeah,
wasn't that you?
About 2009, 2010. A friend of mine in Atlanta, we created a way for business to get together and kind of communicate to work together. And we did that up till COVID. We just haven't brought it back, but we are working on bringing it back since COVID went away. So it's just a way for small businesses in different companies to get together and learn from each other. Because if you inspire more entrepreneurs, what happens is they teach each other how to do business with each other. And that's the best thing. By me just patronizing you, Chip, does not help me really grow your business. Not that one day. It has to be an exchange of ideas and goods as well.
It was pretty popular before COVID hit. I remember that. I used to get invitations from you guys all the time about this. It was pretty popular. But this whole idea of networking, getting together, and what I like about that in particular is that, we're not fighting each other. We're not against each other. This is a true get together, of professionals to talk about shared interest and maybe create ideas that spawn from activities like this. Correct?
Well, that, and also I'll tell you, Skip, you can also learn from each other.
Yeah.
Because the same problem that I'm having in my business, you may be having that same problem, and it's not about the competition. It's about solving a problem, and how. If you're having some great business practices at your business, I'm sharing it with you, because why not? There's a lot of people in this town. We can all make money. But it's better if we build our own resources and build ourselves together.
Well, listen, my friend. Before I let you go, I just one final thing. I want to get back to the young people. We've seen a lot of incidents these days that involve our young people as young as 12, 13, 14 years old. How do we turn it around, Kelly, in your opinion?
The short answer to that, Chip, is that we have to start investing in our young people.
Uh-huh.
There's organizations, National Society of Black Engineers, Junior. There's all these great organizations that we can get our kids involved in, but we have to start setting the narrative and giving them a path. Right now, there's no path for these children. Now, some kids do have a path. Don't get me wrong, Chip.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them are out doing things. But on the large scale in our city, the large part of that is we have kids that have nothing to do. And people talk about fixing a problem, but it takes work to fix this problem. Get your kids involved in something.
Well, I tell you what, my friend, I wanted to end on that because I knew you had something positive to say about it. But listen, I really I'm proud of your efforts and what you're doing to make our community truly better out here. And I wish you the best of luck in your endeavors down the road. You got a lot of fans down here on the Facebook Live line. I see Jet is with you, and you know he's checking you out as well. So I'm sure you guys will chop it up a little bit later. But man, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you. You're welcome back anytime, Kelly.
I appreciate it, Chip. Thanks a lot.
Have a great night, man. Thank you so much.
All
right, ladies. All right, ladies. Huh? Oh,
I'll see you in the gym.
Okay, sounds good. I'll see you in the gym. Absolutely that, yeah. Well, that's a great way to end the show, for sure. Kelly is you see him in the gym. This guy, man, he can lift a building. So this guy's so big and muscular. But anyway, great show tonight with all my guests. I want to thank all of my guests for being here and chiming in this evening. I always have to remind and always have to plug Nicole. One of my gang, one of my crew here, Nicole Covington, has her own show here on WYXR. It is on Saturday nights at midnight to 1 a.m. It is called Planet Chrome. I'm proud of you. It's a really good show. It's a good show. You coming into your thing. You're doing your thing. They're going to push me out after a while, ladies and gentlemen. She and Lola both, they both have, Lola has satellite radio shows on, and of course, Nicole is here. And, Brent and I are just kind of sitting over in the corner, just kind of watching things. But as he plays us out, thank you for tuning in, checking us out, listening, watching, however you find us. My brother, Michael Washington, all the way from Los Angeles, California. He's checking us out. GKP Worth is watching us. Audrey Hill and, Tamara Rose, Marcella Dickerson. Hi, I see you. Jackson Baker, the Honorable Jackson Baker, checking us out, as is Wilma Peggs, Vicki Goldman, Bishop Charles Rogers, and the list goes on and on and on. Thank you guys so much for your support and encouragement. If you like what we do, tell somebody and come back to Real Talk Memphis. So, for Lola, for Nicole, for Brent, I'm Chip. We're out. Have a wonderful week. Be safe.
It's real.